Imagine for a second that you're walking through Osaka.
Right.
It's exactly the glittering, hyper-modern Japanese city you picture. You know, you've got the flashing neon lights.
The incredible street food.
Exactly. Endless streams of travelers taking photos. But then you take a wrong turn off a major street.
Everything changes.
Yeah, suddenly the neon just fades, the crowds thin out, and without passing any official signs, you cross this invisible boundary into a completely different world.
A place that, officially speaking, doesn't even exist on modern maps.
Right. And today's deep dive is taking us right into that hidden city.
It really is a fascinating spatial and historical anomaly.
It really is.
For this deep dive, we're examining a deeply researched document titled the Osaka Kamagasaki Historical Research Report.
And it's a dense one.
Oh, very.
Mm-hmm.
It details the hidden history, the spatial production, and the profound social transformations of an Osaka neighborhood that has been deliberately pushed to the margins of society.
And our mission today isn't just to give you some dry historical summary. We're going to explore the forgotten narratives of this neighborhood.
Historically known as Kamagasaki.
Right, Kamagasaki. But more than that, we're going to map out the physical scars and the architectural ghosts left behind by these events.
The physical evidence.
Exactly. We are talking about fascinating physical landmarks that an intrepid urban observer like you can actually go and decode today.
Which is the best way to learn history, really.
Totally. And to help guide us through this incredibly dense and rich material, I'm joined by our resident expert. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So where do we start?
Well, to really set the stage for you, we first need to understand what Kamagasaki actually was.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways still is.
Yeah.
For decades, it was Japan's largest yoseiba.
Yoseiba.
Yeah, yoseiba is essentially a day laborer market. During Japan's rapid modernization, stretching from the Meiji era right through the post-war economic miracles, Kamagasaki acted as the invisible engine of the country.
So they were doing the actual building.
Yes. These laborers did the grueling heavy lifting that built the modern nation. But as the sources detail, once that heavy lifting was done, the neighborhood and its people were coldly pushed out of sight.
Just swept under the rug.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this with a moment that really brought that tension to a boiling point. We are going back to August 1st, 1961.
A crucial date.
Yeah, it's an ordinary afternoon, and a day laborer is hit by a car on a street in Kamagasaki. The police arrive on the scene, but according to witnesses, they show an extreme, almost chilling indifference.
Yeah, it was bad.
Instead of immediately calling an ambulance to save the man's life, the officers prioritize taking street measurements.
And writing up their paperwork.
While the guy is bleeding out.
Right. That staggering indifference was the spark. But you have to understand, the powder cake had been building for years.
The tension was already there.
Exactly. The sources describe how this blatant disregard, essentially not treating the bleeding laborer as a human being, was the final straw. It ignited a massive riot.
Thousands of laborers.
Thousands. They besieged the Nishinari police station. They were overturning cars, fighting riot police in these narrow, cramped alleyways.
Yeah.
But they weren't just fighting about a traffic accident. They were rebelling against a deeply corrupt system that ruled every aspect of their lives.
The report mentions this corrupt trinity at play here, including illegal labor brokers known as tahaishi.
Yes, the tahaishi.
How exactly did those brokers operate within this system?
It was essentially a state-tolerated mafia system. Because these laborers were mostly off the grid, they couldn't just apply for jobs normally.
Right, no official addresses.
Right. So they relied on the tahaishi to get day work in construction or on the docks. And these brokers would illegally skim massive percentages off the workers' daily wages.
Just exploiting them.
Exactly. And if a worker complained, they were blacklisted or beaten.
And the police just let this happen.
The police routinely turned a blind eye to it. They acted as enforcers for the broader capitalist system that needed cheap, disposable tools. So this riot violently exposed a legal vacuum right in the middle of Japan.
A zone where standard labor protections just evaporated.
Completely.
The government's reaction to this uprising is what really caught my attention. Realizing they couldn't just beat the neighborhood into submission with batons, the state decided in 1966 to literally erase the neighborhood from the map.
A classic administrative move.
Yeah. They officially renamed the area Airin-chiku.
Which translates to neighborhood of love.
Neighborhood of love. I mean, you can't make that up.
What's fascinating here is the use of semantic control. Naming is an incredibly powerful tool for spatial and psychological engineering.
How so?
By pasting this heartwarming, sanitized ladle over Kamagasaki, the state was attempting to erase the area's deep history of class struggle.
Oh, I see.
It's a universal tactic of state power. If you want to neutralize a population's collective memory, you rewrite the map.
You change the name, you change the history.
Exactly. They wanted to turn a spontaneously generated rebellious slum into a controlled, docile administrative zone.
But the physical landscape tells the real truth. And this brings us to the first remnant of this history that you can actually see today.
The hidden gems.
Right. If you visit the Nishinari ward, look closely at the Nishinari police station itself. It does not look like a normal neighborhood precinct.
Not at all.
It looks like an urban fortress. It features massive riot fences, reinforced glass, intense surveillance cameras.
It's a physical monument to the state's lingering fear of the neighborhood.
And the second architectural echo is literally hiding in plain sight. The streets themselves.
Yes, the streets around the Airin General Center.
If you walk around there, you'll notice the streets are abnormally wide, especially when you compare them to the narrow, labyrinthine alleys of the neighboring Sano area.
And that wasn't a cosmetic choice.
No. The sources revealed those streets were deliberately redesigned and widened in the 1960s for a very specific reason.
To allow police, buses, and riot squads to mobilize quickly.
It is a militarized landscape masquerading as basic urban planning. You are literally walking on riot control infrastructure.
It's incredible. And that idea of the state manipulating the physical environment leads perfectly into what happened a few years later.
Right. Let's move to 1970.
Japan is hosting the World Expo in Osaka.
And the theme is progress and harmony.
Progress and harmony. It's meant to be a glittering showcase of Japan's post-war technological boom.
But the research pulls back the curtain on an unsettling reality behind that shiny facade.
The human cost of that progress was staggering. To build this futuristic wonderland on accelerated timelines, the organizers relied on extreme rush jobs.
And where did they get the manpower for those impossible deadlines?
Sourced directly from the disposable day laborers of Kamagasaki.
Of course.
The report highlights a grueling realities uncovered by a local activist named Masaharu Hirai. He documented a grim phenomenon he called the Hitobashira narrative.
Hitobashira, that translates roughly to human pillar, right?
Yes, human pillar.
The sources mention something horrific happening during the construction of a water gate for the expo. Can you walk us through what Hirai uncovered there?
It's a deeply tragic story. During a massive rush to complete a water gate, safety protocols were entirely bypassed.
Just ignored to save time.
Right. And this resulted in a sudden, catastrophic mudslide. 11 workers were buried alive.
Oh my God.
Because the site was completely chaotic and heavy machinery couldn't safely access the area, their fellow laborers actually had to dig their bodies out of the mud by hand.
That is just unimaginable.
And because many of these workers were transient day laborers without official addresses or family ties on record, many weren't even properly identified.
They just vanished.
They became literal human pillars, permanently buried beneath the concrete foundations of Japan's economic miracle.
The report said at least 17 workers died just preparing the expo grounds.
Yes. At least 17.
It's a devastating continuity in the region's history. It seems like whenever the nation hosted a grand event, whether it was the 1903 National Industrial Exhibition or the 1970 Expo, the city treats these people like a light switch.
A light switch.
Yeah, they flick them on when they need cheap muscle, and they flick them off, hiding them behind walls the second the dignitaries arrive.
That's a great way to put it. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces us to ask a profound question about urban memory. Who gets remembered in the grand narrative of a city, and whose lives are deemed an acceptable sacrifice for modernization?
Which gives a totally different meaning to the monuments you might visit today. You've probably seen pictures of the massive, iconic Tower of the Sun at the Expo Memorial Park.
It's world famous.
Right. But we want you to contrast that giant monument to progress with a much more sobering sight. Near the exit of the Tenjinbashisuji Six-Combe subway station, locals call it Tenroku, there is a tiny, easily missed memorial monument.
Very easy to walk right past.
Exactly. It honors the 79 people killed in a massive gas explosion during the Rush subway construction for that very same expo. It is a profound physical reminder of the true cost of progress, tucked away in the shadows.
It's a scar on the modern city. And that level of state neglect, where a population is literally being buried under the foundations of the city, created an immense psychological toll on the neighborhood.
Right, so where did they turn? Because the sources indicate that traditional middle-class Christian charity was completely failing to resonate in the 1970s.
Completely failing.
I mean, imagine standing on a street corner, giving a polite sermon to laborers who are freezing to death or dying of exhaustion on the pavement. It just didn't work.
It was perceived as highly paternalistic. It was completely disconnected from their lived reality.
It makes sense.
The traditional religious institutions faced a massive crisis of faith and relevance in the face of such raw, unvarnished suffering. They were trying to offer spiritual salvation to people who lacked basic physical survival.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Enter Father Tetsuro Honda, a Franciscan priest.
A fascinating figure.
He didn't just visit Kamagasaki to hand out pamphlets. He moved in. He lived there for 40 years.
40 years.
And he had a massive awakening early on. He was approached by a homeless man in a park who simply said to him, "Sorry, thank you."
Just that.
Just that. But it was said with such immense dignity that it stopped Father Honda in his tracks.
Father Honda realized in that moment that the divine wasn't something he needed to bring into the slum from the outside.
Yeah,
The divine was already there, living inside these suffering laborers.
right.
His response was a theological earthquake. He essentially abandoned the traditional missionary approach. He stopped trying to hand out tickets to heaven.
Right, no more preaching from above.
Exactly. Instead, he re-examined his own faith through the lens of the laborers.
He even went back to the original biblical texts, right?
Yes, he did. He pointed out that the Greek word lakton in the Bible, which is traditionally translated as carpenter to describe Jesus,
Yeah.
actually more accurately translates to a day laborer or a stonemason.
Wow. So he was arguing that Jesus himself was essentially a Kamagasaki day laborer.
Precisely.
That is a complete inversion of how we usually think about religion and charity. He pioneered this concept called baptism as sinking.
Baptism as sinking.
The idea wasn't about getting clean and pure and rising above the dirt. It was about climbing down into the mud to stand in solidarity with the most marginalized people on earth.
This represents a profound shift from a charity model to a solidarity model.
Yeah.
It's basically the East Asian manifestation of liberation theology.
He wasn't there to save them.
No, he believed he was there to be saved by them.
Huh.
By recognizing their inherent humanity and standing alongside them against structural oppression.
And you can actually visit the physical legacy of this radical empathy today.
Another hidden gem.
Yes. In the Haginachaya area, there is a place called Forsato no Ie, which translates to House of Hometown.
House of Hometown.
Don't look for a grand cathedral with stained glass. It's a weathered 3-story building with a simple white curtain, a noren hanging out front.
Very understated.
Very. There are no massive crosses, no forced sermons. It functions as a public living room. The sources call it a formless church.
A formless church. I love that phrasing.
For laborers who have been stripped of their names, reduced to numbers by the state, and ignored by society, this is a rare space where they can simply exist, drink tea, and be treated as human beings.
That kind of unconditional space is incredibly rare in any modern city. It's a sanctuary not just from the elements, but from the relentless dehumanization of the outside world.
Now, while Father Honda was trying to tear down metaphorical walls, the city's history is full of examples of them building literal ones.
Literal concrete walls.
That brings us to a story of extreme geographical engineering on the southern edge of Kamagasaki in a place called Tobita-shinshi. Back in 1912, a massive fire destroyed the city's old red light district.
So the government saw an opportunity.
Exactly. They decided to relocate it. And where did they put it? Right next to Kamagasaki, on an area that historically served as an execution ground and a cemetery.
A very deliberate choice.
And they deliberately used a steep natural slope to isolate it from the rest of the city.
This was a highly calculated move by urban planners practicing a severe form of spatial segregation.
Putting everyone they didn't want to see in one place.
Right. They took two deeply marginalized populations, the day laborers who sold their physical labor, and the women of Tobita-shinshi who sold their sexual labor and crammed them into one isolated zone.
But they didn't want them mixing.
No, they didn't want these groups mixing freely or potentially forming any kind of class solidarity. So they built a massive concrete barrier between them, which became historically known as the Wall of Size, or Najiki no Kabe.
The Wall of Size. It physically and psychologically separated these two worlds of exploitation.
It was brutal.
It seems like an incredibly cynical way to keep all the city's so-called undesirables in one highly monitored, easily policed area, completely out of sight of the middle class.
The architecture of the wall was designed to divide, but also to trap. It created an otherized space where the rules of the normal city were suspended. The laborers could look over, they could desire, but they were ultimately separated from the women by this brutal concrete reality of their shared marginalization.
And while the concrete wall itself has been torn down, you can still trace its ghost if you know where to look.
If you walk through the Sano area today,
Yeah, you aren't just seeing a steep street. You can navigate those slopes and see the towering stone retaining walls that once formed the foundation of the Wall of Sighs.
it's still there in the topography.
But there is a detail here that is just deeply unsettling. Right in the middle of this area is a building called Tayoshi Haikuban. It was built in 1921.
The restaurant.
Yeah, it is a lavish, over-the-top restaurant designed to look like a mix of a famous Shinto shrine and a Dutch palace.
It's bizarre.
It was built specifically to offer these exhausted, exploited laborers a temporary illusion that they were kings for a night.
And the irony is astounding. Today, this massive monument to exploitation, this fake palace built to distract laborers from their misery while draining their wages, is officially protected by the Japanese state. Yes, as a registered tangible cultural property.
It's incredibly cynical. The state is essentially preserving the grand illusion of wealth and fantasy while completely erasing the reality of the people who actually built the city.
It perfectly encapsulates the city's relationship with its underclass, which actually leads us to the root of how this entire management system began.
Let's go back even further.
Right. If we go to 1911, we can see the origins of this control.
Okay, let's look at that. Kamagasaki at this time is a sprawling slum, and it's suddenly riddled with a deadly cholera outbreak.
A major public health crisis.
And the police don't see the people as citizens in need of medical help. They view the poor purely as a security threat to the broader city.
It was an era before the concept of a modern social safety net existed. Poverty was treated strictly as a policing issue.
Just hit them with batons.
Exactly. But the local police chief, a man named Mitsunori Nakamura, recognized that simply beating starving sick people with batons wasn't going to prevent societal collapse.
It wasn't sustainable.
No. He realized they needed a new strategy to maintain order.
So Nakamura actually goes out, raises funds from wealthy merchants, and builds the Osaka Jikyokon in 1912.
A major facility.
It provided beds, it provided porridge, it offered a lifeline to those who were starving. But, as the report points out, this wasn't quite the philanthropic gesture it appears to be.
Yes.
There was a major catch.
This raises an important question about the fundamental nature of charity versus control. This initiative was not born out of a sudden awakening to human rights.
Far from it.
It was a calculated strategy of social defense. To get that bed and that bowl of porridge, a laborer had to surrender their fingerprints and submit to total police surveillance.
Wow.
It was the birth of what the researchers call a police welfare complex.
A police welfare complex. They called it a self-strengthening strategy. The unspoken contract was basically conform to our rules, let us track your every move, and we'll give you just enough calories to survive another day of labor.
And you can see the living architectural footprint of this today.
Right on the streets of Nishinari.
Yes. If you look for places like Sentoku Ryo and other modern welfare facilities, pay very close attention to what's built right next door.
Almost without fail, these welfare buildings are situated directly adjacent to police stations.
It's a remarkable physical legacy. The built environment of the neighborhood still reflects that 100-year-old Meiji-era strategy of governing the underclass with a baton in one hand and a bowl of porridge in the other.
The control mechanisms have just been modernized.
Exactly.
So we've walked through riots and semantic erasure, human pillars buried in mud, radical street theology, walls built to divide, and a police welfare complex that trades food for fingerprints.
There's a lot to take in.
It really is. When we step back and look at all of these narratives, what does this ultimately reveal about how our cities operate?
If we synthesize these narratives, Kamagasaki represents a deep, ongoing tug-of-war between usefulness and exclusion.
Usefulness and exclusion.
Yes. When the state needs immense, cheap manpower for its proudest monuments, the subways, the highways, the expo, it calls upon these laborers. They are intensely useful.
But then the job ends.
But the moment the ribbon is cut, they are violently excluded, hidden behind walls, and erased through semantic tricks like renaming the town.
But it's vital to note that the report makes it clear Kamagasaki isn't just a story of passive victims.
Not at all.
The neighborhood is constantly fighting back and reclaiming its own narrative. We saw it with Father Honda's radical solidarity. We also see it in how the laborers have taken that oppressive police welfare system and essentially transformed those resources into a fortress for their own survival.
They use the system against itself.
Exactly. Today, Kamagasaki has the highest rate of welfare protection in Japan, not just because the state wants to control them, but because the residents organized and fought tooth and nail to secure those legal rights.
Precisely. And we are seeing a fascinating modern shift. As the day laborer population ages, the neighborhood is transitioning from a center of pure physical labor to a hub of artistic expression.
Really? Like what?
Initiatives like the Kamagasaki University of the Arts are allowing residents to use theater, literature, and art to define their own history.
That's amazing.
They are refusing to just be a sociological problem to be managed. They are asserting their humanity and preserving their memories.
Which brings this right back to you, listening to this right now. The next time you're traveling, or even just walking through a beautifully gentrified neighborhood in your own city, or booking a room at a shiny new boutique hotel.
Like the very ones that are currently creeping into the edges of Kamagasaki.
Exactly. Ask yourself what invisible histories were swept aside to create that pristine view. Who were the human pillars beneath the lobby floor?
True urban observation requires reading those overlapping codes of history. It's about seeing the fortress hidden in the architecture of a police station, or recognizing the formless church behind a simple white curtain.
It completely changes how you experience a city. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the map's blank spaces.
It was a pleasure. And this leaves us with a critical thought to mull over. We've talked extensively about physical laborers and concrete walls. But as remote work and digital nomadism completely changed the way we build our world today, who are the invisible day laborers of our modern digital economy?
Oh, that's a great question.
The gig workers, the content moderators, the unseen data labelers.
That is an excellent point. They are the new invisible workforce.
We have to ask ourselves, where is the new algorithmic wall of size being built right now, designed to keep them out of sight without us even noticing?
That is a fascinating and unsettling thought to leave on. Keep your eyes open, keep questioning the world built around you, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.